My wife, Karen, demands to open our marriage for her irresistible coworker. How can I protect our marriage? My wife wants to open our marriage because she finds her coworker irresistible, and I'm at a loss for words. I need to get this off my chest. It's been eating me alive. My wife, who is 34, and I, who are 36, have been married for 8 years. I have always thought we had a nice thing going. Sure, no marriage is perfect, but I assumed we'd always work things out together. For context, I'm 5 feet 6 inches and she's 5 feet 5 inches. My height has always been a sensitive matter for me. It's not like I obsess about it, but you can't avoid the odd barb or comment from others. However, my wife has never made me feel as if it matters. She used to call me her perfect match, because we were so similar in height. It was one of those small gestures that made me feel like Mom truly loved me for who I was. But then Ethan happened. Ethan is her new coworker. He's 6 feet 4 inches, stunningly attractive, and the type of guy you'd see on the front of a fitness magazine. He's pleasant, humorous, and seems to know exactly what to say. At first, I didn't think much about it. She'd mention him occasionally, typically in passing. Ethan said the funniest thing at work today, or Ethan's such a genius at solving these problems. I assumed it was just standard business stuff. Everyone has that one coworker with whom they click, right? Then things started getting odd. She'd mention him more frequently, and with this tone in her voice, not exactly gushing, but certainly not indifferent. I'd catch her smiling at her phone, pretending it was just a funny meme Ethan shared in the group chat. She also started dressing differently. Nothing dramatic, but enough to make me notice. She purchased a new perfume and stated that she simply wanted to switch things up. I convinced myself that I was overthinking it. Then came the shocker. One night, we were sitting on the couch, sharing a bottle of wine. She appeared a little tipsy, but not intoxicated. She abruptly stated, "I need to be honest with you. I find Ethan quite appealing. I can't quit thinking about him. But don't worry, I haven't acted on it." I just sat there, frozen. I wasn't sure what to say. Before I could digest it, she continued, "I believe we should consider opening the marriage so that I can explore these feelings. It may even bring us closer in the end." My brain short-circuited. I told her straight up that I wasn't comfortable with it. I did not sign up for an open marriage. The thought of her with someone else, let alone this Ethan guy, made me sick to my stomach. She quickly became defensive. "You're being insecure," she said. "You're letting your height anxiety cloud your judgment. This is not about you. It's about me discovering my genuine self." She made it sound like I was preventing her from embarking on a tremendous adventure of personal discovery. I felt like the evil person because I didn't want to see my wife fall into the arms of another man. She told me to be supportive, that this may be an opportunity for us to grow as a marriage. I felt as if I was losing my grasp on reality. The lady I'd been with for nearly a decade sat right in front of me, asking for permission to end our marriage. I wasn't sure whether to cry or yell. I just sat there numb. Since that night, things have been tense. She stopped addressing Ethan completely, but it feels forced, as if she's trying to dodge the matter. The tension between us is suffocating. I can't look at her without repeating our chat in my head. I keep wondering, if she's already so taken with him, what's preventing her from doing it anyway? Everything irritates me these days. Whether she chuckles at her phone, I worry whether he is texting her. If she gets home late, I can't help but wonder where she has been. I detest feeling this way. It's as if a giant invisible wall has formed between us, and I have no idea how to knock it down. Part of me wonders if I am being unreasonable. Maybe this is just modern relationships, and I am too old-fashioned to understand it. But the other, louder part of me feels deceived. How can I compete with a guy like Ethan? The fact that she even wants this makes me feel like I'm no longer good enough for her, as if I've already lost, and I hadn't realized I was fighting. I've been losing sleep over it, repeating the talk over and over, trying to figure out where we can go next. I am in love with her. I do not want to lose her. But I can't imagine sharing her with anybody else. I feel trapped and don't know what to do. I was told by someone, "You've already lost her, not because you did something wrong, but because she lacks the maturity to stay away from trouble." That rang true. When you find yourself attracted to someone while in a relationship, the best thing to do is remain away and let those feelings pass, rather than allowing them to develop into something uncontrolled. She is not mature enough to do it. So I'll tell her exactly what I've realized. She can remain away or do whatever she wants, after the divorce is completed. We all have to make decisions. She doesn't get to have everything. That is terribly selfish, and she used gaslighting to force you to satisfy her immature desires. Now to the next story, story 2. I was blamed for infertility by my ex-husband and in-laws, despite normal results, so I left. Now my ex has lost everything due to his lies. I, 32F, was married to my ex-husband Jake, 34M, for 5 years. Initially, we had a good relationship. When we first met, Jake was charming, amusing, and easy to chat to. I genuinely believed I had met someone who would always have my back. But everything changed once we married. Jake's parents, particularly his mother, began pressuring us to have children almost immediately following the wedding. At first, the comments were lighthearted, such as, "When will we have a grandchild?" However, it quickly became the only topic they wanted to discuss. For reference, Jake is an only child whose parents were extremely controlling. His mother was the type of person who had a plan for everything: how Jake should live, who he should marry, and what his life should be like. While we were dating, I had no idea how much power his family wielded. However, following the wedding, it became evident that Jake had a strong desire to gain their approval for all he did. He was especially eager for his mother's approval, which produced a lot of stress between us. Around 2 years into our marriage, Jake's parents' push to have children became overwhelming. We had tried, but nothing was happening, so I went to the doctor to make sure everything was fine on my end. All of my tests came back normal, which was a relief for me. Naturally, I suggested Jake get tested as well, just to rule out any problems on his end. That's when things started to unravel. Jake refused to be tested. He acted as if I had insulted him by even mentioning it. He asserted that he wasn't the problem and refused to talk about it anymore. I was frustrated by his reaction since all I wanted to do was figure out what was going on so we could move forward. However, Jake was locked in a haughty mindset, as if admitting a potential problem on his side was impossible or shameful. As Jake continued to decline testing, I began to feel bad about myself. Even though the physicians had told me that nothing was wrong with me, his actions made me feel as if I was somehow to blame. Meanwhile, Jake's parents persisted with their intrusive questions and comments. Every time we visited them, the subject of their prospective grandchildren dominated the conversation. It got to the point where I dreaded going to family gatherings because I knew they'd just talk about having grandchildren. No matter how many times I attempted to explain that these things take time or that we were working on them, his mother gave me a condescending look, as if she was disappointed in me. Then they began making direct statements to me about how they hoped I was not the problem. At one family gathering, where a slew of Jake's distant relatives were present, Jake's mother bluntly informed me that she hoped I wasn't damaged, in a very loud voice, with a phony, worried expression on her face. I felt humiliated. Jake said nothing. He just sat there awkwardly, laughing it off as if it was no big thing. That stung more than anything. I believed he should have defended me, but instead he allowed his parents to humiliate me. When I tried to talk to him about it, he dismissed it, saying it was simply his mother's sense of humor. A few months later, we had another family meal, and Jake's mother chose to make another harsh remark. This time, she did not hold back. She went into hysterics, wailing about how old she was getting and how I was wrecking her dreams of having grandchildren. She then started screaming in my face, calling me a broken woman, and a disgrace to womanhood. Everyone stayed silent. I was horrified. I did everything I could to keep myself from saying something rude. I knew she enjoyed humiliating me in front of her family, but this was beyond uncalled for. I looked around to see if anyone had anything to say, but everyone just kept looking down at their plates. The only answer was Jake's father nodding in agreement with his wife. Jake, like the rest of his family, simply gazed at his plate, pretending nothing was going on. That was it. That was my breaking point. I couldn't believe that, despite everything I'd gone through while trying to figure out why we couldn't conceive, Jake refused to defend me. Seeing him sit there passively, without even looking at me, let me realize where our marriage stood. That night, when we arrived home, I packed my bags and informed Jake that I was going. He hardly reacts. He didn't seem to care that I was done. He was so accustomed to his parents being the focus that he had no idea he had lost me. That only made me angry. How difficult is it to stand up for someone you claim to love? I left that day and have never looked back. Leaving was not an easy decision, but it was the best one I've ever made. After I left, I moved in with a buddy for a few months while I planned my future moves. I filed for divorce, and the process went fairly smoothly. Jake did not fight it, and we ended things peacefully. After the divorce was finalized, I focused on reconstructing my life. I returned to my profession, surrounded myself with helpful friends, and finally met someone new, my now husband, Sam, 35 million. Sam has been an absolute breath of fresh air. In many ways, he is diametrically opposed to Jake. He listens, communicates, and, most importantly, always looks out for me. We ended up dating for only a year because I became pregnant and we rushed to marry. Let me tell you, I've had a much better time with Sam in this short period than I did with Jake. Sam and I were ecstatic about my pregnancy. It meant so much more to me after everything I'd been through with Jake and his family. Now, let's look at what transpired recently. One day, while out shopping with Sam, I ran across Jake's parents in the mall. To recap, it's been 2 years since I last saw them. I was visibly pregnant at the time, and their reaction was priceless. They were stunned to say the least. They tried to be courteous by making small chat, but I could see they were shocked to see me pregnant. I'll admit that seeing their reactions made me feel vindicated. They spent years torturing and discouraging me for being unable to conceive, yet look where I am now. I hastily said goodbye and nearly forgot I had met them. Sam and I were very busy preparing for the baby, and I had no desire to linger on the past. But then, approximately a week after the mall incident, Jake began texting and calling me. Initially, I ignored them. I assumed his parents had informed him of my pregnancy and new marriage, and Jake was just being nosy. But he did not stop. I eventually opened one of his texts. He was infuriated. When his parents discovered I was pregnant, they challenged him about our marriage and why we had never had children. Jake apparently never corrected his parents when they assumed I was the reason we couldn't have children. In fact, he encouraged people to believe I was the problem. When they saw I was pregnant, they understood he had been lying to them all along. According to what I've heard, his parents were outraged when they discovered the truth. They accused him of squandering years of their lives by convincing them that they would never have grandkids because of me, when in truth, Jake was most likely the one with fertility troubles. To make matters worse for Jake, his parents had always intended to leave him a sizable inheritance. However, after finding his lies, they cut him off totally. Of course, Jake blamed me for everything. He said that if I had not flaunted my pregnancy in front of his parents, none of this would have occurred. He accused me of ruining his life because he had lost everything, even the inheritance he had hoped for. I couldn't believe he was blaming this on me. I simply moved on with my life, and it was not my fault that his lies came back to haunt him. I have not answered Jake's mails, and I do not intend to. I'm content with where I am today, and I have no desire to become engaged in his family turmoil. In my opinion, Jake dug his own hole. He would not be in this situation if he had not allowed his parents to treat me like garbage or lied to them about why we couldn't have children. I really wish Jake would stop making me feel terrible about something that is entirely his fault. Despite my intense feelings about this, I spoke with a friend yesterday and told her all that had transpired. She told me I was wrong to leave Jake like that and that I should have pushed him harder to complete the examinations. She also claimed I should not have spoken with Jake's parents and that it was petty of me to do so. I mean, I can see how I was being petty. I never wanted to hurt Jake. I must say, however, that Jake being punished for his falsehoods is a pleasant bonus. Anyway, my husband told me that anything my buddy claimed was false, but I can't help but wonder if there was some truth to what she said. So, am I an asshole, AITA, for leaving my ex-husband after his family labeled me broken? And am I wrong not to feel sorry about him losing his inheritance? Update 1. Escalation and desperation. Okay, so things have grown much more complicated, and I really need to vent. After I posted my original story, I assumed that was the end of it. But oh boy, was I mistaken. Jake has been blowing up my phone non-stop. I blocked his number, but he then began texting me on social media. I also blocked him there, but he kept creating new accounts just to reach out. He even began phoning from several numbers. I did not respond to any of it, but the texts grew increasingly frantic and angry over time. At first, he was simply blaming me for damaging his connection with his parents. But now he's gone over the deep end, claiming I owe him since I took away his future. He insists that if I had stayed with him, none of this would have occurred. It's really exhausting. Some individuals in the comments on my initial post agreed with my buddy and questioned why I didn't push harder to persuade Jake to take fertility tests. So let me be clear. I tried. I truly tried. But every time I offered it, Jake would shut me down entirely. He acted as if I had betrayed him simply by bringing it up. He refused to speak to me for days after I inquired about the tests. I tried everything I could to be patient, but there's only so much you can do when someone is so stubborn. I eventually realized I couldn't force him to do something he didn't want to do, so I had to let it go for my own sanity. Some individuals have also accused me of being selfish for displaying my pregnancy in front of Jake's parents. Look, I hadn't planned to run into them. I was just out shopping with my spouse, minding my own business. I wasn't seeking for them specifically to rub my pregnancy in their faces. However, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel great to see their astonished reactions. I experienced what I can only describe as a nightmare. with them continually belittling me, making me feel broken, and blaming me for everything. So, yeah, it felt nice to demonstrate that I wasn't the problem or broken. But I wasn't trying to upset Jake or make any drama. All I wanted was to enjoy my life. I viewed our interaction as a fun boost to my self-esteem. Jake has pushed things to a whole new level. He didn't simply message me. He found out where I live. I have no idea how he found my address, and I am afraid. He arrived at my residence 2 nights ago. He hammered on the door for at least 15 minutes, wanting to speak with me. Fortunately, my husband Sam was home and promptly instructed him to leave. Jake refused, claiming that he only wanted to explain himself, but Sam quickly shut that down. He warned Jake that if he didn't leave, we would contact the cops. Jake eventually backed down, but not before shrieking that I had wrecked everything for him. It was quite terrifying. I can't help but fear that if I let things continue unchecked, he'll do something even more insane. Many people asked me how I discovered Jake had lost his fortune. Fortunately, I didn't learn all of the specifics straight from him. From what I've gathered from his angry messages, it appears that his parents feel completely betrayed. They were enraged when they found that the reason they never had grandchildren wasn't because of me, but rather Jake himself. They believe he lied to them for years, convincing them that I was the problem. Because their whole attention was on having grandkids, they thought Jake no longer deserved the inheritance they had intended to leave him. According to my understanding, they have now completely cut him off, both emotionally and financially. Jake is heartbroken by this, which I suppose is why he's pursuing me so aggressively. I do not feel bad about him losing the inheritance. I mean, what was I meant to do? Stay in a terrible marriage so his parents don't find out the truth? That is not on me. Jake made his own decisions. He could have told his parents the truth at any time, but instead he allowed them to mistreat me and never defended me. So, no, I don't feel sorry for what happened to him. If anything, it seems like karma is finally coming up with him. However, I have to admit that I am a little nervous. Jake's behavior is becoming increasingly unpredictable. My spouse and I are already discussing taking extra precautions in case Jake turns up again. We've considered placing cameras around the house and even obtaining a restraining order if he doesn't back down. I want to believe that he will ultimately give up, but something tells me that he will not let this go easy. He seems to be spiraling out of control, and I have no idea what he's going to do next. So, that's where things are right now. I believe this chapter in my life was over, but Jake had other intentions. I simply hope he quickly sees that I am not to blame for his difficulties. All I did was move on with my life, and to be honest, I am happier than I have ever been. I simply want to be left alone so I can enjoy the life I've created with my husband and our upcoming baby. I'll keep you posted if anything more happens, but for now, I'm hoping Jake gets the word and leaves me alone. If not, I suppose we'll have to escalate the situation and engage authorities. Hopefully, that does not happen, but who knows at this point. Thank you to everyone who responded to my first post and offered suggestions. It made me realize that I wasn't crazy for leaving Jake or feeling the way I do now. I'll report again if anything changes, but for now, I'm just trying to keep focused on the future and avoid letting Jake's bullshit drag me back into the past. Update 2. Hello, everyone. I didn't expect to be back with another update so soon, but things have taken a wild turn. After my last update, I assumed Jake would finally leave me alone. I mean, even showing up at my place was already a step too far, right? To Jake, that was insignificant. Instead, he's devised a new strategy, which is just as crazy as it sounds. After Sam, my husband and I made it obvious that we did not want Jake anywhere near us, he began bombarding me with messages again. Instead of being upset and blaming me for everything, Jake's demeanor improved dramatically. Suddenly, he begged me for assistance. He began emailing me things like, "I need you to talk to my parents, and you owe me this." He transitioned from being like a complete lunatic to requesting favors. At this point, I was perplexed but also intrigued by what he planned to accomplish. Jake is now certain that if I speak with his parents and explain everything, they will give him his fortune back. He wants me to go to them, tell them it was a misunderstanding, and somehow persuade them that he is still deserving of the riches they were planning to leave him. At first, I assumed it was a joke. There's no way he believes I'd do that, right? But he's completely serious. He acts as if I can simply wave a magic wand and make everything better for him. He even said that if I hadn't bumped into them, they would never have found out, and he'd be set for life. I couldn't believe the crap coming out of his mouth. I couldn't believe he didn't realize he had caused all of this by lying to them and treating me like garbage for years. His lack of self-awareness was both strange and frightening. It takes a lot of ego to entirely disavow responsibility for your own acts, right? Anyway, I did not react to any of his erratic texts, and he became increasingly desperate. In a matter of days, his communications progressed from begging to threatening. He said things such as, "If you don't help me, I'll make sure everyone knows you're a liar, and you'll regret this." This is ridiculous. He's clearly on a downward spiral, and he's now attempting to intimidate me into doing anything he wants. Unfortunately for him, I'm no longer terrified of him. I've dealt with enough of his bullshit to know he's just talking, so I'm not getting embroiled in his family drama again. I tried to dodge him by banning all of his new phone numbers and accounts, but I have a nagging sense he will not stop. He's already come to my place once, so what's keeping him from trying again? My husband and I have discussed getting a restraining order, but we are still deciding on the best course of action. I don't want things to become worse, but I also can't continue living like this. I can't keep worrying if Jake would show up out of nowhere with new demands or threats. If he shows up again and I refuse to do what he asks, will he harm me? He's clearly spinning and not in the best of moods, so I can't say for certain that he wouldn't. To make matters worse, I discovered that Jake's parents had been communicating with some mutual friends. Apparently, they now blame me for their family's disintegration. They believe I influenced Jake into concealing the truth, and that I am the reason they are cutting him off. I'm not sure where to start with that. Everyone in Jake's life seemed to be in utter denial about who he truly is, and I find myself caught in the center of their distorted reality. Anyway, I've been doing my best to ignore Jake's attempts to contact me, but I'm not sure how much longer I can avoid the problem. I just want to concentrate on my pregnancy and my life with Sam, but Jake is making it impossible to do so. He's not just trying to get back into his parents' good graces. He's also attempting to drag me down with him, and I won't allow that to happen. I haven't decided what to do yet, but I'm thinking about contacting his parents myself, not to aid Jake, but to set the record right once and for all. If they choose to blame me for their son's falsehoods, that is their choice, but I will not sit back and let them spread rumors about me. At the same time, I'm concerned that any interaction with them will only make matters worse. It seems like a lose-lose situation. So that's where things stand right now. Jake has gone from angry and blaming me to begging and threatening, and I'm not sure what his next move will be. I just hope he realizes I'm not going to aid him and backs off before things spiral out of control. I'll keep you all posted if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just figuring out my next steps. Thank you for your continued support. I never anticipated this problem to escalate so quickly, but it helps to know that I'm not alone in coping with it. I'll update again if Jake does anything else, which, let's be honest, he most likely will. Update 3. Hello, everyone. I have some bad and good news. The terrible news is, this will be my final update. I know many of you have been quite invested in my story, and I am grateful that so many of you have been checking in on me on a daily basis to see that my baby and I are safe. As for the good news, I'm finally free of Jake. After Jake's latest round of begging and threatening, I was beginning to worry. Sam, my husband, and I had been talking about moving for a long time, and with everything going on, we decided it was the right moment to go out of town and start over somewhere far away. We located a new apartment in a completely different state, packed up our belongings, and departed without telling anyone where we were going. I was just finished with the drama. Besides, I'm pregnant and needed to focus on myself and the kid. But immediately before we departed, something happened that I can't believe. Remember when Jake's parents blamed me for everything? It appears that they chose to approach Jake personally. I learned about this from one of Jake's cousins, who later became a close friend. Clearly, the confrontation was explosive. Jake originally attempted to blame me for everything and persuade his parents to continue their hatred for me in order to reclaim his money. But Jake's parents were adamant about finding out why he wanted the inheritance so severely. They believed they had helped prepare him for life. They found him a terrific job, bought him a house, paid off his mortgage, and advised him on how to invest in good assets to provide him with financial security. They eventually learned the truth from Jake. Jake had been lying to them about his finances for years. He informed them that he was saving money, working hard, and preparing to take over the family business. In truth, he was spending all of their money on frivolous activities such as online gambling and holidays with his cronies. He never told them about it and maintained the pretense of being a responsible son, to preserve his place in their estate. When his parents learned this, they were furious. They not only cut Jake off financially, but also officially disowned him. They told him they no longer wanted anything to do with him. The inheritance he was so determined to retrieve was gone. Jake's parents apparently spoke with their family first, who suggested that withholding him an inheritance was unnecessary. The family advocated confronting Jake to hear his version of the story and maybe reinstating him in the will if he admitted his mistakes. However, as Jake's parents learnt the whole truth, any chance of reconciliation was lost. I'm not sure what Jake is going to do now, but I'm pleased it's no longer my responsibility. From what I've heard, he's trying to figure out his next move. I wish him the best of success with it. After hearing all of this, I felt a lot of comfort. For years, I thought I was the one who had failed, that I hadn't done enough to make things right with Jake and his family. But now it's evident that Jake was hiding a lot more from everyone, including me. His parents finally recognized him for who he truly is, and it feels like karma has come full circle. As for Sam and me, we've adjusted into our new house in another state and are doing well. I feel much safer now that we are away from Jake and his turmoil. We added security cameras just in case, but there has been no trace of Jake or any other strange communications. We even obtained a restraining order before leaving to guarantee that he could not follow us or try anything else. It feels great to know that he can't come after us anymore. Oh, and here's the icing on top. Jake's parents actually contacted me. I received a note from them, through the same cousin who alerted me about the confrontation, apologizing for how they had treated me over the years. They said they had no idea Jake was lying to them and were sorry for everything they had put me through. I'm not sure whether I'll ever respond to them, but it was wonderful to receive some sort of apology after everything. It's incredible how much things have changed. Anyway, I'm relieved to be able to focus on my life without the weight of all this turmoil. Sam and I are very excited about our baby, and I'm pleased we're in a quiet place now to embrace this new chapter. The last few months have been extremely difficult, but I believe we've come out stronger. Thank you again to everyone who has supported me throughout this struggle. Your comments and advice gave me the strength to keep going, and I thank you more than you know. That's all for now.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
I was a shadow to my sister's piano career, exploited as my family's ATM. They even used my money for her secret engagement party. I, 35F, am a senior investment analyst for a major Manhattan firm, yet to my family, I am nothing more than a personal ATM. I've been hesitant to tell this tale, but recent developments have compelled me to seek outside viewpoints on a subject that has dominated my life for years. Growing up, our entire family revolved on my younger sister, 31F. She was a piano prodigy who began performing at the age of 4. My earliest memories are of helping Mom, 62 degrees Fahrenheit, and Dad, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, prepare for her recitals, ensuring that everything was just right for their little star. While other kids were learning to ride bikes or going on playdates, I was learning how to iron performance costumes and organize sheet music. Make sure your sister has everything she needs for practice, Mom would say, barely looking up from her phone as she recorded another video of my sister's performance. Don't forget to cook dinner. We'll be late tonight due to her master's class. By the age of 11, I was effectively controlling the home. Laundry, cooking, cleaning, it all fell on me. Because your sister needs to focus on her music, was the incessant refrain. I recall the day I won the state mathematics competition in 8th grade. I went home, clutching my award, only to find Mom furiously preparing for my sister's performance. "That's nice, honey," she commented distractedly. "But could you please assist your sister practice? She needs to perfect this piece for the Carnegie Hall Youth Showcase next month." The trophy wound up in a box in my closet, alongside other forgotten accomplishments. The tendency persisted throughout high school. While my sister traveled for competitions and master lessons, I stayed at home and maintained flawless marks. My parents paid thousands of dollars for my sister's private lessons, special music camps, and custom-made performance apparel. Meanwhile, I had to fight for essential school materials. "We need to be practical," Dad would say. "Your sister's career development requires all of our resources." I was not permitted to participate in any after-school events since someone needed to be present at home to prepare for my sister's nighttime practice sessions. When I indicated an interest in joining the debate team, Mom looked at me as if I had suggested we burn down the home. "How could you be so selfish?" she asked. "Your sister needs a peaceful, encouraging atmosphere to practice. You understand how crucial this is to her future." Every family gathering became a recital. Relatives would gather around the piano, gushing about my sister's skill as I served refreshments and cleaned up afterwards. "Such a helpful girl," they'd say patronizingly before turning back to compliment my sister. I learned to be invisible, moving softly through our house like a ghost, ensuring that everything ran properly while drawing no notice to myself. My parents only truly noticed me when anything went wrong with my sister's routine. Then I became visible, but just as a target for blame. If she had a poor performance, it was because I had not provided a calm setting for her practicing. If she felt fatigued during a competition, It was because I hadn't properly prepared her meals. During my senior year of high school, I was admitted into several top universities on partial scholarships. When I showed my parents the acceptance letters, their reaction was lukewarm, at best. "We can't help with any expenses," Dad stated firmly during supper. "Your sister's career development needs all our resources. Besides, you're good with household management, maybe you should look into becoming a housekeeper." That's when our neighbors, the Wilsons, intervened. They had seen me grow up and how I helped at their little accounting office after school while waiting for my sister's practices to finish. Mrs. Wilson, 55 degrees Fahrenheit at the time, had always regarded me as a second daughter, taking an interest in my accomplishments and promoting my academic endeavors. They promised to help with my education fees by establishing up a work-study program at their company. My parents didn't complain, they appeared happy to have me taken care of, so they could concentrate only on my sister. When I attempted to talk about my college plans, Mom cut me off. "We trust the Wilsons to handle it," she added, immediately returning to her phone and organizing my sister's next appearances. "Just make sure this doesn't interfere with your responsibilities at home." The Wilsons became my lifeline. Their encouragement extended beyond financial aid. They demonstrated what it meant to be respected for my own qualities and accomplishments. Mrs. Wilson attended my college orientation when my parents were unable to come due to my sister's summer music festival. Mr. Wilson, 57 million at the time, educated me on financial management and sparked my interest in investment research. Looking back, I understand the Wilsons saw something my parents didn't. A young woman with promise beyond being someone's support network. They supported my education not because they had to, but because they believed in me. Their advice helped me get internships, which led to my current career as a senior investment analyst. Throughout college, I had little touch with my family, only traveling home for important holidays. Each visit followed the same pattern. My sister conducting court in the living room while I assisted in the kitchen, listening to relatives praise her most recent accomplishments. My own accomplishments, Dean's List accolades, internships at famous firms, job offers, were largely overlooked. Everything changed 10 years ago, at what was supposed to be my sister's breakthrough moment. She was preparing for the prestigious Chicago International Piano Competition, which my parents were confident would propel her career to new heights. They'd spent months working out every element, from her performance pieces to her stage demeanor. Even her food was methodically planned to keep her in top-performing condition. The injury occurred during an especially intensive practice session. She was working on Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, a notoriously difficult piece that she persisted on performing despite her teacher's objections. I was at work when Mom called me, her voice quivering with hysteria. "Get to Northwestern Memorial ASAP. Your sister, her wrist, you must come right soon." I discovered them in the ER. Mom screaming violently, Dad pacing like a caged animal, and my sister pale and mute, cradling her right wrist. The diagnosis was devastating. Significant tendon injury with potential nerve involvement. The doctor's words sounded like hammers in the sterile hospital room. Significant rehabilitation is required. Prognosis is unknown. Professional performance might no longer be possible. The next few months were a blur of specialists, second opinions, and increasingly frantic attempts at treatment. My parents liquidated everything they could, including Dad's prized vintage Mustang collection, Mom's family antiques, and even their retirement savings. They flew in European specialists, attempted experimental treatments, and sought advice from alternative medicine practitioners, anything that gave them hope. I watched their finances vanish as they sought miraculous treatments. When their financial advisor suggested bankruptcy protection, they looked at him as if he had suggested abandoning their child. "Money is just money," Dad said. "Our daughter's talent is priceless." I saw he said daughter, as he normally does. Reality set in gradually, like a slow-moving storm. Despite multiple treatments, my sister's wrist never recovered the strength and flexibility required for professional performance. The physicians eventually verified our fears. Her career as a concert pianist was ended. It was more than simply the loss of a profession. It was the dissolution of our entire family mythos. My parents became older in just a few months. Mom stopped fixing her hair and cosmetics, and spent days in her bathrobe viewing footage of my sister's previous performances. Dad, who had always been the family's rock, began missing appointments, bills, and even food. Sometimes they appeared lost, as if their identities were inextricably linked to my sister's musical career. That's when their focus moved to me. But not in the way I had secretly wanted for all those years. They regarded me not as their daughter who could help them recover, but as a financial answer to their escalating issues. I had recently gotten a huge promotion at my firm, becoming a senior analyst before the age of 30, an accomplishment that would have gone unnoticed if it hadn't come with a substantial income rise. "You're doing so well," Mom said on one of her first calls to me in months. Her prideful tone was swiftly followed by, "Your sister needs help with her medical bills. Since you're in such a good position now?" The request was wrapped in layers of remorse and obligation, given with the skillful manipulation that only a mother can perform. At first, I agreed to make a modest monthly donation of $1,000 to help with my sister's therapy and living expenses. It appeared sensible, even necessary. They were family, after all, and I was finally able to give back. The thankfulness looked sincere at first. Mom phoned me on a regular basis to check on my sister's progress, while Dad wrote awkward but emotional thank you emails. But the requests kept coming, each one bigger than the last, with increasingly convoluted excuses. My sister wanted a new automobile because public transportation made her anxious following the incident. My sister's recuperation was hampered by negative energy in the house, which required repair. They required a family vacation because emotional healing is just as important as physical therapy. Then came the credit cards. Just for emergencies, they said, and I was added as an authorized user to their accounts. Their concept of an emergency was surprisingly fluid. Shopping became retail therapy, costly restaurants were necessary for maintaining family bonds during a crisis, and luxury spa retreats were considered essential for recovery. Monthly expenses rose like ivy on a wall, gradually at first, then abruptly overpowering. $1,000 became $2,000, and finally $3,000. Each increment was followed by detailed explanations and emotional manipulation. "After everything we've done for you," became their regular refrain, though I couldn't recall exactly what they'd done. When I hesitated over a particularly substantial request, Mom reminded me of all the sacrifices they'd made, conveniently forgetting that those sacrifices were solely for my sister. My buddy Rachel, 35F, whom I've known since college, was watching the situation with growing concern. "They're not treating you like family," she explained during our weekly dinner at her parents' restaurant. "They're treating you like an ATM with legs." I dismissed her concerns at first, making excuses about family commitments and filial duty. But her comments stayed with me like burrs. The Wilsons, my long-standing mentors, were also concerned. Mrs. Wilson took me aside after our monthly lunch meeting. "Honey," she began, her face wrinkled with concern. "This is not support, it is exploitation. We didn't help you advance your job so you could become your family's personal banker." The breaking point came last week, when I realized they had spent more than $122,000 on my sister's therapeutic shopping spree, without telling me. The expenses included designer clothes, spa treatments, and a weekend at a luxury resort, all explained as necessary for her emotional recovery. When I tried to talk about setting boundaries, Mom fell into tears and gave an Oscar-worthy act about how I was abandoning the family in our time of need. Later that night, Dad called. His voice was gruff and disapproving, using the same authoritarian tone that had kept me in line throughout my youth. "Your sister requires our assistance more than ever," he admonished. "How can you be so selfish when she's still trying to find her way? We've raised you better than this." The irony of his words, "we raised you," hit me like a physical blow. Did they raise me, or did I raise myself under the influence of their obsession with my sister? Yesterday, I received another credit card statement for $115,000 for a health retreat that I never approved. When I called to inquire, my sister answered the phone. "You make so much money," she added dismissively, with the same arrogant tone I remembered from childhood. "Stop being stingy. You know Mom and Dad need this to deal with everything they've been through because of me." I'm writing from my office on the 47th level of our Manhattan building, surrounded by the trappings of my success, despite, rather than because of, my family's support. The chart on my second monitor depicts my family's financial abuse in cold, hard statistics. Over the last year, they've spent more than $150,000 of my money, which is more than most families' annual income. My financial consultant is concerned about the implications for my long-term financial security. My therapist gently indicates that it is important to set hard boundaries. Rachel alternates between providing her guest room and volunteering to tell my family where they can go, in many languages, thanks to her worldwide business experience. But every time I consider cutting them off, I remember the little girl who simply wanted her parents to appreciate her accomplishments. The adolescent who believed that if she worked hard enough, someone would eventually recognize her as more than a support system. The young woman who still hopes that her family would see her as more than a resource. I'm currently at a crossroads, confronting decisions I never intended to make. The Wilsons, who have been more like parents to me than my own, advise I should protect myself. Rachel provides practical assistance and a secure place to ponder. My therapist discusses boundaries and self-respect, words that appear easy but bear the weight of decades of familial relationships. I'm having trouble with questions that don't seem to have any correct answers. Am I being ruthless by considering financial constraints? Is it immoral to want appreciation for my own achievements? Should I simply accept that this is my job in the family, the dependable one, the responsible one, the human ATM? I really don't know anymore. Update 1. My world imploded yesterday when I found on Instagram that my parents are presently in Hawaii, not for a vacation, but for my sister's secret engagement party, which they paid for with my credit card. During lunch, I was aimlessly scrolling through my feed when I came across a post from a mutual acquaintance that stopped me cold. Paradise with the future wife, what's Josh, engagement bliss to Hawaii. There she was, beaming on a beautiful beach, standing next to her boyfriend, now fiancé, with our parents and his family in the background. They had been there for 3 days. I went 3 days without hearing a word from you. Confused and hurt, I opened my banking app. The charges struck me like fists. First-class flights to Honolulu cost $24,800. Grand WEA Resort, 3 ocean view suites for $21,600. Additional expenses include a welcome meal, spa treatments, a sailing excursion, and a private beachside dinner for $12,000. My hands shook as I dialed Mom's number. When she responded, I could hear Hawaiian music and laughter in the background. "Oh honey," she explained casually, "your father and I just decided to take a short break. You're aware of how tough things have been lately? A short break at the Grand WEA with my sister's fiancé's complete family. That kind of break cost more than $58,000 on my credit card." Silence. Muffled voices. Then my sister got on the phone, her remarks oozing with entitlement. "Listen, Miss Executive," she snarled. "You are not required here. You are no longer family, but rather a walking ATM. Nobody wants to hear about your valuable career as we celebrate my engagement." I urged myself to be calm. "That ATM just paid nearly $60,000 for your little party." She laughed coldly. "That's what you're good at, isn't it? Keep doing your fancy job, and we'll enjoy spending your money. It's the only thing you're helpful for." Always was. The call went dead. Within minutes, they had blocked me on all platforms. Mom sent a final message that read, "We're all tired of your negative attitude and jealousy. Please leave us alone. You've spoiled enough precious moments for your sister." Something cold and hard solidified in my chest. My hands remained steady when I accessed my banking app. Each click felt like it broke another link in the chain that had connected me to their torture. Click. Hotel reservations are canceled. Click. Spa packages and excursions are canceled. Click. Return flight tickets have been canceled. Click. Mom's card is permanently deactivated. The aftermath was immediate. My phone burst with calls and messages. "Mom. It's an emergency. Call immediately. Dad says. Fix this quickly. You are embarrassing the family. Sister. You better get this right. Number. Hawaii. The future in-laws, without a doubt." As the hours passed, their tone changed. Mom said, "Sweetie, please, we can talk." Father. "We'll pay you back." Sister. "Stop being so petty, it is my engagement." Then my sister sent out a social media blast. "I can't believe my own sister would spoil the best time of my life. She has always been envious, but this is a new low." Toxic family. Heartbroken. I'd been quiet long enough. I shared everything, screenshots, credit card statements, and messages. The truth about their hidden celebration, unapproved charges, and nasty statements. The tide shifted immediately. People rallied in support as they realized the truth behind their carefully prepared narrative. Mutual friends informed me of the consequences of my acts. My parents needed to borrow money merely to purchase economy flights home. They had to check out of the Grand WEA in front of other visitors. My sister had a temper tantrum in the lobby, which ended up on TikTok. The actual explosion occurred when the fiancé's family discovered they had been caught up in my family's web of deception. They'd been promised a fully compensated luxury holiday, only to find out they were part of a plot to exploit the rich sister. The engagement itself is being called into question, with the fiancé's family questioning the entire arrangement. I am writing this update from my friend Rachel's guest room. The Wilsons have shown their support, reminding me that true family does not treat you like an ATM. I have locked all of my accounts, and my lawyer is drafting cease and desist letters. What is the most difficult part? I don't feel anything. There is no guilt. There's no sadness. Just relief. It's as if I've finally laid down a burden I've been carrying my entire life. Perhaps that is what freedom feels like. Update 2. My Hawaii post has had an illuminating impact. What began as a family quarrel has revealed years of deception to a much larger audience than planned. 3 days after my previous post, I received an email from my sister's fiance's mother. We met in a quiet cafe in Manhattan. We had no idea, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. Your parents informed us that they were wealthy financial managers, and that your sister was taking a sabbatical from her concert piano career. They stated that this luxury vacation was a gift to both families. She revealed specifics concerning my family's dishonesty. They portrayed themselves as wealthy sophisticates, telling anecdotes about their great occupations and my sister's temporary hiatus from performing. The realization struck their family hard. James is devastated, she continued. Not for the money, but for the lies. He confronted my sister about using my credit cards without authorization. She chuckled and stated, "She's my sister, her money is family money." That evening, James ended their engagement. "I can't build a life with someone who thinks it's okay to steal from and exclude their own sister," he told her. He returned the ring and walked away, his family fully supporting his decision. My sister's reaction was explosive. She recorded a lengthy Instagram live tirade blaming me for losing her chance at happiness, and when that failed to get traction, she began contacting my colleagues, spreading stories about how I abandoned my family during their time of need. However, her efforts backfired. My documented post had already made the rounds. People had seen the credit card statements, read the texts, and recognized the pattern of exploitation. Each fresh attack from her simply strengthened my narrative. My parents' professional consequences has been devastating. Dad's consulting customers began to distance themselves, Mom's social position in her charity circles plummeted, and their carefully cultivated image was broken. They've been trying to reach me via every imaginable method, and the tone of their messages alternates between appealing and demanding. "We are still your parents. You can't just cut us off after all we've done for you. Your sister is devastated. How can you be so cruel? We'll pay you back, just give us time." They showed up at my workplace yesterday. Security turned them away, but not before Mom made a fuss in the lobby, wailing about her ungrateful daughter. My colleagues have been quite sympathetic, with several sharing their own experiences with family financial abuse. The Wilsons have been my rock throughout this. Mrs. Wilson helped me update all of my banking information and set up additional security measures, and Mr. Wilson is aiding me in documenting every unlawful transaction for possible legal action. Rachel's parents offered me their guest house for as long as I needed it. Family doesn't steal from family, Rachel's mom told me. And they certainly don't exclude their own daughter from family celebrations while spending her money. My sister's ex-fiancé's family has been surprisingly supportive, openly defending my actions and sharing their own experiences with my family's dishonesty. Their narrative has helped others understand the full extent of the manipulation. My parents sent me a big envelope today containing a promissory note for the Hawaii expenses, as well as a letter about healing our family bonds and moving forward together. They advised family therapy and regular meals to help re-establish trust. However, there was no acknowledgement of their decades of emotional abuse, or of how they'd methodically abused me while removing me from the family. The letter spoke of misunderstandings, as if $58,000 in illegal charges and a secret family celebration were simple mistakes. I returned the letter unopened, accompanied with a formal cease and desist notification from my lawyer. Some extended family members have attempted to mediate. "They're still your parents," they explain. "Family is family. But here's the thing, they've never treated me like family. I was their housekeeper, their ATM, their backup plan, never their daughter, sister, or true part of the family. I'm tired of being the family bank, the unseen support system, and sacrificing my financial and emotional security for people who see me as nothing more than a resource to be used. For the first time in my life, I am putting myself first. My money is my money, my time is my time, and my life is my life, which is extremely freeing." Update 3. It's been a month since my previous update, and I finally accomplished something I never imagined possible. Full tranquility. 2 weeks ago, my family made their final attempt at reconciliation, arriving to my apartment with photo albums and recital programs. The doorman refused to let them in, but they waited in the lobby for hours. "We just want a reminder of the good times," Mom told the doorman, flipping through images of my sister's performances and pointing out shots where I might be seen in the background, usually hauling equipment or adjusting costumes. Dad attempted to contact my colleagues via LinkedIn. "We're worried about our daughter's mental health," he wrote. "She's cutting off her loving family over a simple misunderstanding about shared finances." My co-workers shared his mails to me, along with comments justifying my behavior. My sister's current social media technique has been to play the victim, creating videos about toxic individualism and how money destroys families, while carefully editing out the unauthorized charges and the secret engagement party. However, the comment sections are brimming with folks who have shared the entire narrative. The final straw came when they contacted the Wilsons to make me see reason. Mr. Wilson responded quickly and emphatically. "You've exploited her for years. Leave her alone. I've changed my phone number, shut down my accounts, and even pondered moving to another city. My therapist thinks I'm finally recovering my life, and for the first time in years, I feel liberated." They phoned the Wilsons to help me see reason. Mr. Wilson's response was perfect. "For 30 years, I've seen you treat her as nothing more than a convenience. She is finally appreciating herself as she should have been regarded all along. My lawyer has written formal letters requesting payback of all improper transactions, which totaled over $287,000 over 3 years. They claim everything was agreed upon and that I'm rewriting history. The bank's fraud department disagrees, and investigations are still ongoing. I've moved to a new apartment in a secure building, my mail has been routed through a screening agency, my phone number has changed, my email has rigorous filters, and my social media profiles have been canceled or made private. Last week, I was offered a partnership track position, and the managing partner commented that my management of the family problem demonstrated the kind of backbone they look for in a leader. Without the continual drain of family expectations, I've been able to focus on my profession. Rachel's parents have informally adopted me. I have standing Sunday dinner invitations, and her mother keeps accidentally cooking too much food. They urge that I attend their annual Cape Cod vacation. "Real family vacations don't involve stealing," Rachel's father quipped as we organized the trip. Mrs. Wilson has been helping me rediscover abandoned interests, and I've started taking photography classes, which I couldn't do in high school because it would have clashed with my sister's practice schedule. The Wilsons are still my steady mentors. The extended family is still pushing for reconciliation. But what about the holidays? What happens when your parents are older? These queries used to make me feel guilty. Now they just remind me of how one-sided our relationship was. My therapist pointed out that my family's behavior follows a common pattern of financial abuse, which is veiled by cultural expectations of familial obligation. "You're not breaking family bonds," I was told. "You're breaking free from exploitation." The most significant shift has occurred internally. The worry that used to follow every phone contact, email, and bank alert has vanished. I no longer flinch when my phone calls or feel terrible about spending my own money on myself. Last weekend, I bought an abstract painting that spoke to me, and as I hung it, I realized it was the first time I had bought something solely for myself, rather than for someone else. My sister's most recent post accuses me of being callous for abandoning family. Nevertheless, I have not abandoned family. Rather, I have discovered my true family. It's Rachel's parents asking about my day, and they mean it. It's the Wilsons honoring my accomplishments without expecting anything in return. My coworkers are the ones who never hesitate to defend me. Sometimes I think of that little girl who ironed concert dresses and made dinners to get attention, and I wish I could tell her she deserved more. That being useful is not synonymous with being loved. The real family does not treat you like an ATM. I'm not an ATM. I'm not a support system. I am not a resource to be used. I am free.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
I called an ambulance when my coworker fell and hit her head drunk at a work event. She got fired, and now some colleagues blame me. This got removed from AITA, so posting here. I, 27F, was at a group work training for my job this past weekend. The company put a bunch of us up in a hotel and had us attend a day-long presentation about our goals for the next quarter. For context, we're in sales, it's highly competitive, and the group consisted of mostly older employees with me being the youngest. After a full day of meetings, a few of us decided to get dinner at a restaurant down the street from our hotel. We carpooled, and when we arrived, one of the older ladies, Deborah, 50s, was already there, standing at the bar. We invited her to join us for food, but she declined, and we moved on with our night. I had 2 beers with dinner, so I'm not judging, but as we finished our meal, it became clear that Deborah was plastered. She was stumbling even though the ground was level and slurring pretty badly. As we left, Deborah came outside with us and reached for her keys. I immediately stopped her and said I'd drive her back to our hotel. She agreed, but as she went to grab the passenger door handle, she missed and fell straight back onto the pavement, hitting the back of her head. I don't mean to be gross, but it sounded like someone dropped a carton of eggs. I checked, and not only was she passed out, but she was bleeding from her head. Everyone panicked, and I grabbed my phone to call 911. One of the younger guys stopped me and said, "Help me get her in the car. We'll get her room key out of her purse and just put her in bed." I was bewildered and said, "But she has a head injury. She's bleeding? What if she cracked her skull?" "I'm no doctor, but if you go to sleep with a head injury, don't you not wake up?" I'm pretty sure I learned that in school, and some of the other employees agreed with me, so I called the ambulance. Paramedics took Deborah to the hospital, and she survived, though she was in really bad shape when I checked up on her the next day. Here's where I may be the asshole. Our managers found out that Deborah was hospitalized for over-drinking while technically at a work function, and they fired her on the spot. Everyone also found out that I was the one who insisted on calling an ambulance. The older employees are all saying I did the right thing and that she could have died, but the younger ones are calling me a snake and saying I got her fired on purpose because she was competition. Comments. Comment 1. NTA. Better jobless than dead. You did exactly right, I stand corrected. Spelling matters reply. I'm sure the co-workers giving OP shit would have also given her shit if she didn't call the ambulance and the co-worker died. She did the right thing for sure. If they'd dragged her back to the hotel, put her to bed, and she died overnight, they'd be fired and arrested. OP saved everyone's ass. This actually happened to a friend. He got an offer letter just after we graduated, was treating his friends to food and drinks, drove drunk on a bike, and crashed, hit his head. There were no superficial injuries, and the friend who was on the bike with him was also drunk, watch high. So they decided not to take him to a hospital, and took him to his apartment to sleep it off. He never woke up. Gone for good at 22, my friend's entire family was looking forward to him working. They were lower income class, both parents disabled. He was looking forward to being their support system. Don't drive drunk, for your sake and others. And if you ever suffer a head injury, go straight to ER. Now to the next story, story 2. My laughter at my sister's tragedy. Baby name got me uninvited, sparked a family intervention, and saved my niece. Original post. My sister is due in early January and we're planning her baby shower for early December. She decided she wanted to use my mother's maiden name, Rafferty, as her daughter's name. Not a tragedy itself, and I guess it works as a unique name. But yesterday I texted my sister that I needed to get the custom items with my niece's name ordered ASAP so they would arrive in time for the shower. My sister then let me know they're going with an alternative spelling of Rafferty. I texted back, "An alternative spelling? Of our mother's maiden name? My sister wants to spell it Rayfarty." So I sent back a bunch of laughing emojis and she asked, "What's so funny?" I tried to explain that no one will pronounce that as Rafferty and she'll probably get plenty of the same mispronunciations. She told me I was being ridiculous. I texted back, "My poor niece, little Miss Farty Ray." I was uninvited to the shower and my mom told me today my sister doesn't want me as the godmother anymore. But, Rayfarty is really bad, isn't it? Someone needs to tell her, right? Some of OOP's comments. Josh. Top comments. Barge G. Yup, it's Rayfarty, no matter what sis wants to believe. Oop. Thank you. Balloon Ship. Rayfarty. MGM, expected release 2025. A hard-boiled detective living and working in the heart of Pittsburgh's Sulphur District is tasked with investigating the theft of 12,000 durians. In an unexpected twist, the alleged mastermind of the crime, the CEO of Chipotle, was also Ray's high school chemistry teacher. Oop. OMG. I needed this? Estamos ready. That's terrible, she is going to hate her name. Out of curiosity, how old is your sister? Oop. My sister is 26. We both have fairly plain names and my sister was always jealous of people with more exotic names. She told my mom that spelling it Rayfarty will be obvious that it's pronounced Rafferty, but it makes it look more girly. I mean, yeah, girls fart too. Happy Big 3297, Rafferty comes under the category of names I wouldn't use. Not a big fan of surnames as first names, but which I can see tick some boxes that would make them appealing to some people. Honors your mom, sounds gender neutral, could use the nickname Raf. Rayfarty comes under the category of names that sound like jokes. No wonder you laughed. Do what you can to dissuade her. Everyone's going to pronounce it as Farty. Oop, I agree. I wouldn't use it myself, but I get that it honors my mom and her family and it's not too out there. Thank God my mother wasn't born a Lewandowski. No offense to the Lewandowskis out there. My mom is mildly annoyed. She wants to honor her last name but totally respell it. But my mother's opinion is that it's my sister's child and no one but she and her husband really have a say in the name. Apparently my sister insists everyone will understand it as Rafferty and not Rayfarty, SMDH. What about BIL? I texted him last night to ask if he knew about the colorful respelling. Surprise, surprise. He hates it and immediately thinks Ray farty, too. But he doesn't know how to approach it because my sister's pregnancy has been increasingly emotional and he's already walking on eggshells. Update post. I don't know if updates are allowed here, but here it is and sorry it's long and I've been having a hard time submitting it. Is there a character limit? I'll try posting some and put the rest in the comments. So we had an intervention on Ray farty. I know everyone said to send a link to the original post to my sister to show her that 103% of the global population would call her daughter Ray farty, and that would be the easiest thing to do, but some commenters said some pretty gnarly things about my sister that she doesn't need to read and feel worse about herself. But I wanted to address a few things that came up. First, for those saying I shouldn't bother paying for the baby shower anymore, I had no plans to not continue to pay and help out. Disagreements and fighting aside, I love my sister and want her to go into motherhood filled with love and support, regardless of whether she wants my support or attendance at the event. Second, my sister's husband was made aware of the spelling change of Rafferty to Rayfarty about a month before my original post. He said he didn't think much of it until he saw it written down and immediately saw it as Ray farty, too. He said her emotions had been getting worse throughout the pregnancy, and he didn't know how to approach her about going back to the original spelling. He had hoped that once she gave birth, all the hormones would somehow leave her body, she'd come to her senses, and it would be a non-issue. Third, a lot of you were lumping my mom in with my sister and said some pretty horrible things about her too. All my mom knew was from my sister calling her to complain that I laughed at her for slightly changing the spelling. My mom just assumed it was a minor change like Rafferty until I told her to grab a pen and paper and I'd spell it out for her. Once she saw it was Rayfarty, she was team save this child. The rest of the saga is in the comments. Continued. The rest. Now for those of you who told me I didn't have any tact and my reaction was mean, my reaction was because 1. People would call the poor girl Ray farty her entire life for the sake of my sister being quirky. 2. Pregnancy brain aside, surely my sister would realize her child will be called Ray farty once it's pointed out, have a laugh, change her mind, and this will end up being a funny story to tell at her daughter's future wedding or something. And 3. My sister is a bit of a joker, so I also initially thought she was just pulling a prank or joking. But if she was joking, she took the joke really, really far. She spent $400 on a mural painted on one wall in the nursery. She wanted to debut the finished nursery to everyone at the baby shower, including her husband, who was forbidden to see it beforehand, that had Ray farty incorporated into it that now needs to be repainted. She also bought herself a birthing gift? Is this even a thing? She'd have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital. A 900+ gold bracelet with R, A, E, F, A, R, T, and Y charms. The baby book also has Ray farty embroidered on the cover. I contacted my sister's best friend Katie, not her real name, if my sister has told her anything about the spelling change. She found out about Ray farty after the blow-up with my sister, as my sister wanted to get Katie on her side. Katie, who's a teacher, was equally horrified about the spelling and told me this is the worst attempt at a creative name she's ever seen. The intervention of sorts, the farty party, if you will, included me, my sister, her husband, his mother and father, my mother and Katie. My sister refused to believe anyone could possibly see Ray farty as Ray farty, and that we were just mad that she was taking creative license and that everyone does that nowadays. My sister said children are not that cruel to bully her daughter for her name, and Katie said plenty of kids are cruel enough and the others would join in so they're not singled out themselves. My sister countered that as long as all the adults are pronouncing it correctly that it'll be no problem, and Katie told her that not only would the adults not know how to pronounce it to begin with, but that as long as fart is in the name, kids will latch right onto that. I was happy Katie was there because she's shared interesting names her students have had over the past few years, so I knew her opinion on this would probably be the only one to sway her. My sister cried for about 10 minutes and finally agreed to entirely change the name because even Rafferty was tainted because we had all ruined it for her. We told her to take her time to consider a new name. She told us she still wanted to honor my mother and she suggested she'd combine my mother's first name with her mother-in-law's name and created a name on the spot that included a crass term for a lesbian. When my mother pointed that out, she started crying again and accused us of not letting her be a mom, and her husband suggested we leave it for now and we should all go and give her space. It's been radio silence until my sister texted me a couple of hours ago that she and her husband landed on Theodora and she is absolutely in love with it. She even decided by my unborn niece looks like a Theodora in the ultrasounds. She got those creepy 3D ones done where every baby looks like the same copper potato. I replied that that was lovely and that I'm so happy she's happy. It's not my taste, but at least it's not Theodora or some crap like that. So there you go. My niece has been saved from being called Ray farty. I'm invited to the baby shower again, and I know this is just a little blip with my relationship to my sister and we'll be fine, but Katie will be taking over as godmother, which is fine by me. I can always be godmother to their next child, who will probably be named something like tiramisu. Thank you all for seeing the same thing I did and letting me know stopping Rayfarty from coming into existence was the right thing to do. Some of Ope's comments. Commenter. She also bought herself a birthing gift. Is this even a thing? She'd have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital. What the actual fuck? Silly name aside, what is this? Some kind of social media fueled, look at me and how wonderful I am to get a gift as a reward for giving birth. This feels very tacky to me. The whole push present concept gives me the ick. Oop. I agree. I've never heard of this before and it seems crazy. But also, if I ever ruin my body and push out a watermelon, I'd kinda want a reward too, though. Commenter. Pretty please tell us the amalgamation of her mother and MIL's names. Ope. There's probably no anonymity left on this situation, so here it goes. My mom is Leslie. Sister's MIL is Yvonne. The name was Les Yvonne. Pronounced Les Yvonne, like my niece is the lesbian baroness of some German village. I'll have the staff prepare the Birkenstocks for Les Yvonne Fartenberg's arrival. New update post. Title, Rayfarty has made it to the party. I don't know if you remember my post from a few weeks back about my sister wanting to name my niece Rayfarty, pronounced Rafferty and not at all like Rayfarty. My niece has been born 2 weeks earlier than expected, but she is healthy and home now. When my sister first held her, she said, "She's so adorable," and got an idea. She wanted to change from Theodora to Theodorable. Thankfully my BIL put his foot down. He did give her carte blanche on the middle name. When it was supposed to be Rafferty, they went with Rose to counterbalance Rafferty being different. Now that Theodora was the normal name, and because my sister just cannot not be extra, she chose Jacksonville. Theodora Jacksonville. A Rayfarty Rose by any other name would smell as sweet. We are not from Florida. BIL is not from Florida. I don't think my sister's ever been to Florida, much less to Jacksonville. I asked her how she came up with it and she said she always liked geographical names, which is news to me because I specifically remember a conversation about names months ago and she said she hated when parents name their kids place names like Camden or Brooklyn because they're trying way too hard. But you do you, Rayfarty's mom. Also, our city has a pretty sizable Polish-American population and people will certainly try to pronounce it like it's a Polish last name, but at least the craziness is confined to the middle name. And there's no gas or slurs involved. Some of OOP's comments, that person you don't know, thanks for the update on Rayfarty. At least it's a middle name, and thank goodness Bill stopped the other craziness. Oh, props to my BIL this time around. He said the look on the nurse's face when my sister suggested Theodorable was all he needed. LOL, capable box. 8785. The entire internet remembers Rayfarty. Your sister is a legend, but that middle name though, a full-on tragedy. Oop. When we heard the name, my mother warned me, let's not go through this again, it's just the middle name. So I behaved myself. Broadway Girl 27, does your sister understand the legacy she has created? Oh, a few people know about the post, but I don't think she does, or is too embarrassed to admit she knows. But she's not really on social media much except for water talk vids. Editor's note, water talk is people sharing recipes for like, flavored water. But sometimes no water is involved or it is a monstrosity posing as water. Curtis Connor did a video on it if you want to find out more, but regardless, it's certainly a more niche community. Miranda524. It has even made its way to TikTok. OP. Suli she must know by now. Sorry not sorry, I did what I needed to do to save Miss Farty Ray.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.